Welcome back to the Exchange Podcast.
So glad to be back.
I know.
It's nice to be.
It's nice to be
invited
back.
again.
And
I know, right?
yeah.
It's kind of like we're important.
Wait,
Sometimes.
I feel privileged.
You do?
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Oh.
So let me tell you who we have in the house. I am, of course, your host, Deborah Faith.
Woo!
And we have none other than Amber Juice Girl Dixon back in the house.
Juicy. Got me crazy.
And I got my sister, her crazy self, Tamara Cunningham,
Yes, Tamara.
aka Sis, because that's what I call her.
Yeah,
back in the
guys.
house.
What's up? What's up?
And I'm so happy to have you guys tonight.
Really?
It's
Yeah,
nice to be
I'm
here.
I'm happy to have you because tonight is a very sensitive topic for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Our topic today is called "What About Me?"
Oh, wow. Okay.
Rejection.
Mhm.
And I think, sis, you probably know a little bit more in the case of rejection, but it's something that I've struggled with. I mean, like, really struggled with the majority of my life. And in a place so much so that I think it took me a long time to even identify how it was affecting me, right?
Okay.
And it's caused me over time in therapy and all of that to really like dig deeper. And one of the craziest things that I've learned about rejection is the same physical pain that you feel when you cut yourself that happens in your brain is the same thing that you experience when you experience rejection.
Cut like with a knife?
Like any physical pain. So
Wow.
broken bones, anything that you've damaged. And I was like,
Wow.
wow, you know what? Like, if you hurt something, if I broke my arm, right? How would I tend to that? It would be, you would be attentive to that. Or if I was bleeding,
Right.
It's
It
to
would
be
be
nursing.
Yeah.
the attention level to that
Right.
would be so much more intensified,
Right.
right?
And it would be immediate.
And it would
Right.
be immediate.
All
Right. You wouldn't be worried about anyone else or anything else at that point but
Right.
you.
Yes, you would get yourself to a hospital if you
Right.
broke a bone,
Adrenaline.
right?
Right.
Right?
Kicks in.
You would get a Band-Aid, you would get
Right.
Neosport, you would do all of these things. However, with rejection, do we do that?
Oh, no.
Not at all.
Is that a question for real?
I mean, like,
because I got the answer.
let
Let's
me know
hear
your
it.
answer.
Let's
No,
hear
no,
it.
not even because I have the answer. You know what? I always kind of feel like whenever rejection enters the room, so does ego. No matter what type of rejection we receive,
Okay.
I feel like ego immediately enters the building. I feel like that's almost like what the adrenaline is.
Wow.
If I had to think about rejection, because I think of myself when I'm rejected, like you instantly like you buff
tense
up,
up.
like you start.
Yeah, it's like a defense
It's a
mechanism.
defense. It's a
Yeah.
defense
It's a
mechanism.
defense
Like it because number one, the first thing you do, I feel when rejection happens, is that you question who you are and you affirm it instantly.
That's a good, I've never thought about that.
Right? You
Because
affirm it instantly. Like
it
if somebody
is.
tells you, like, think about if you apply to a job, right? You don't know how, like, you like, I know I could get this job, right? I used to be like a serial job applying. Shout out to God for making me an entrepreneur, because Lord knows, my family knows Amber got a job, right? But and that used to hurt me. I think that used to be something that hurt me. So it's like, yo, I know I could get this job. Even if you know somebody who's there and you like, if they got that job, I
could get that
job.
Wow.
And that's why I say I feel that ego instantly enters, because think about when you get that email that says, thank you for applying, but we have found other applicants who are more suiting, right? You instantly look at yourself like, well,
Why not?
what they talking about?
What about be me?
Right,
And
right.
that is, so I think, here's the thing. No matter how talented we are, beautiful we are, skilled we are, we're all going to experience rejection
at some
Absolutely.
point. Yeah.
in some areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for some people, like when you talk about career, I've never experienced that.
Wow.
Right? So I think that people have different areas
Of
that they,
rejection.
you know, have repeat
Yeah.
rejection in, you know, and like, where does that start? So I think it's for me, it's like, you know, almost like, when did you meet rejection? Were you the kid on the playground that didn't get picked?
Oh, wow.
right?
That's a definite condition.
Yeah, you remember that? You'd be on the playground back in the day, and it was like who you're picking teams, and the last person to be picked, or the person that nobody else wants.
Yeah, so I had to go deep into the memory bank for this, for the first time I ever felt rejection.
Wow.
And I remember being, I think maybe in the 6th or 7th grade, and being the tallest
Oh God, me
in
too.
the room, right?
Wow.
I've been this height since 6th or 7th grade, and feeling like no one wanted to kind of be with me or play with me because, you know, I was born.
Wow.
I was born weird, right?
Shout out to
And
Shaq.
that for me, I think was the first point in my life when I felt like I was different, or that I felt rejection in a kind of social atmosphere at school, right? And then when you start to feel that kind of rejection, especially at school, I mean, kids can be cruel.
Oh, absolutely.
Then you start to kind of question who you are, you know, how you look, you know, what makes you different, or what makes you set apart. But something that you said, Amber, is you begin to affirm those things. And I figured in my life after that point in time, I can't recall ever being rejected thereafter until I was in my 20s.
Wow.
Really?
Because I began to affirm, and my mom began to affirm, and my dad began to affirm those things in me. No, you're not tall, and you're not Olive Oil and Big Bird and all these, right? You're beautiful.
Right.
They're gonna want to be this tall when they get to be, you know, older. Yeah. Like those kinds of things. So I think that affirmation at home for the people who really love you and who really matter, that affirmation I think is important.
I like that you said that, because my parents were the same way. I'm a dark-skinned girl. I was a tall girl. And that was like huge, like, you get what I'm saying, especially like in school. Like my parents, like, I don't know, maybe because they already just knew what my path was gonna kind of be like. It was just like, you're dark, you're beautiful. Yeah. My parents bought me,
and
like,
you are, Amber.
Thank you. You know. Shout out to this melanin skin, you know? But you know, my parents were very good with that. Like they bought me like Nefertiti jewelry when I was young. Like they praised dark skin. So when I kind of went to school and heard those things, I thought it was something wrong with them, not me. Wow. More than anything. So I never allowed that to be a stigma for me.
I guess your parents were aware enough to do that.
Yeah. Right? And because my mom experienced it as a kid.
I was about to say, or you shared that with your parents to, like, you know, the kids are teasing me. What about the people that aren't? Like, what sharing that? Yeah. Because I feel like even as a kid, when I think back to being rejected in certain ways, I don't know that was something that I ever went home and shared.
God, that stuff sticks with you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't think I've ever, and as you're talking, I'm really like thinking if I ever had that conversation with my parents.
Right.
And what about those parents who kind of talk like the kids at school to you in your home?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. So I don't know that I ever had that conversation.
No, I mean, I think you're hopeful that parents are being observant. And not just being observant, but even snooping around and trying to figure out, what's going on with your child, right? I mean, we're looking at everything that's going on with our children, whether they say it or not. The nonverbals say a lot.
Right.
And I don't think my parents, like my dad worked a lot, right? My mom was a mom of, it was at a point, it was 5 of us, siblings that were lost. And then my younger sister who passed away was, she was handicapped. So I don't know that the attention was necessarily on me to the level that people were like asking me that. And that, again, more of about me to, about rejection, or if people, and maybe people just assumed I
think that's important, because I think the way that you deal with rejection the first time will color how you deal with rejection moving forward, right? And so if you are getting positive reinforcement at home or from someone else, right, then, and you know how to deal with that, then I think moving forward in your life, so your rejection in your adulthood is a telling tale. Because of how it was addressed or unaddressed, as a child. And I think people need to look at that. It's like, I mean, I really had to dig deep. Like, when was the first time I was rejected, and how did I deal with that? Yeah. Because then that affects everything else.
And that's good, because again, mine hasn't been in career. It's always been in love.
Oh,
it's always been
love rejection.
the love rejection, right? And it's, it's one that really not only had me question what about me, but almost like, you know, am I ever going to be chosen?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Am I ever going to be the choice, right? Was I worthy? Was I enough? Like, and I can think back to as small as probably like, I think I probably was 6th grade, maybe 7th grade. I'll give it 7th grade. But I remember liking a boy on the playground and him just like being like, no, like, no.
That boy was stupid.
I mean,
let's be clear.
It's all right.
And now you're Beyonce. Look, and now you're Beyonce. Who's he?
He's in the DMs now.
Oh,
But
7th grader is in the DMs now.
now.
Excuse me, sir. This is a PSA, okay, for the one who is in Deb's DMs.
But no, seriously, but that affected,
Yeah.
you know, me as a child and growing up. Like, you know what I mean? In that area,
Right.
I've always struggled.
Yeah.
I've always like not felt enough.
Yeah.
And that has been like, again, something to kind of deal with. And I don't think I really knew it was rejection because mine was different. Like you said, ego walked in the room. I think I had ego response, but mine was more flight response.
Like a
Wow.
run.
And I thought about that actually when you were talking.
Yeah.
The first response is, I need to get out of here.
Yes.
This is not where I want to be.
100%.
I'm uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, ashamed, embarrassed.
All of that.
All of that is
All of that.
I think
of
all
that
of those
is it.
things are live. I don't know. I think it's
personality.
it is.
Too.
I definitely
Yeah.
think it's
I definitely think it's
personality. I think
personality.
I definitely am a little egotistical when it comes to certain things.
And you might be a
about
little bit more
myself.
confrontational too.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm a little. Honestly, I'm tough. Like you get what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't like to carry that as a weapon, but I am like I'm very strong in who I am.
Yeah.
To the point that and don't get me wrong, that does not mean that there were people who didn't make me question at a point
Right,
who
right.
I am. I think that over time, I just learned how to talk to myself. Like what someone else says about me doesn't deem it true.
Gotcha.
If you say those things about me, I just may not be your choice. And you're talking about love. Like last summer, I had a guy straight up like tell me like, yeah, I think we'll be better as friends.
Yeah.
He straight up said that to me.
I'm always the friend.
Yes, like he said that to me, and I was like, oh, but
Were you interested though? Or
no.
was it just-
I was. I thought I was being cool, but here's the thing: I had to learn in that I don't have to try to finagle myself
You really
to
don't.
fit a puzzle.
You really don't. You
I don't
really
have
don't.
to finagle who I
and it
am.
doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah, to please you. Because here's the thing: like what I took from that, I think in the past, like of who I was, like if I was a little unsure about myself, that could have hurt me. I guess my response was otherwise. I was like, cool, that's his choice.
Yeah.
Like, you get what I'm saying? Because we all have one. And guess what? If I'm honest, I'm probably more of a rejecter than a rejectee.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And guess what? When you are like that, you have to know that sometimes it's going to be your turn.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I don't think I've ever thought about that. I wonder if people ever felt like I've rejected them. Probably so.
I'm sure.
Well, even the framing of this,
Oh, I'm sure.
sis, as I was thinking about it and kind of mulling over what you sent, and I'm like, wow, but this is all about being rejected. This is not about us being on the other end of that and rejecting others or even identifying. Because, I mean, you just said you don't even know.
I mean,
when was the last time you reject? I mean, I'm not talking about the brothers in your DM. I'm talking about real rejection.
That
But
counts.
I think all of that, depending on how people receive it, I probably reject people all the time right now because especially in the love area of things, because I'm not there, right? So it's always a kind of, here, I'm focused on this and yeah, it's nice to meet you. I always say I just haven't found the person that does that for me. You know what I mean? So, but at the same token, maybe I have been the rejecter. I've been the leaver because again, my response was not ego. I learned, okay, well, and here's a crazy story, but even in love, I've had one love experience where it was way too good. Right? But again, that unhealed, unaddressed wound from years and years and years, then that whole thing plays in my head, or not anymore, but at that period of time was definitely playing in my head to a place where I was like, he's definitely going to leave.
Wow.
And so, it was easier.
Self-sabotage.
It is.
That's what that is.
I know, sis. Yeah. That's why I'm saying, like,
I'm not saying it like you don't know, but
not now. But just to be able to look back and reflect, I'm like somebody who I really, really loved. Mm-hmm. I left because it was easier for me to leave than to ever think about him leaving me.
Wow.
Do you think that has to do with what you feel as far as deserving that type of level of love?
It was so overwhelming. It wasn't a deserving. It wasn't that I didn't deserve it. It was just that my pattern for so long had consisted
like
of
get
this,
you before you get me.
Like, I'm gonna get you before you get me. So I'm gonna not even get you, because I 100% wasn't trying to injure him in any way.
Yeah,
you
were just trying to protect yourself.
But it was the level of, like you said, when rejection walks in the room, for you it's ego. For me, it's I'm packing my bags and I'm out. Wow. I can leave. You know what I mean? And I could control, which I've definitely, again, stuff that I've been working through. That definitely breeds control for me. It's like, wow, if I'm gonna hurt on my terms at this point. And I know that it's definitely
you're trying to control the response.
I can see that, and I flight can be seen in two different ways. It can be seen as a point of weakness, but it can also be seen as a point of power, right? So I'm leaving this situation. You've rejected me, but I'm removing myself from this particular situation, and I'm going to grieve in my own way. And I'm going to because I may be feeling all these things: shame, embarrassment, defeat, rejection, all of these things. Like a failure.
I can't, succeed in that area.
But it could also be like, okay, I'm going to pack my stuff up and this is it. And you don't ever have to worry about laying eyes on me again.
Yeah.
You don't have to remove my number out of your phone, take my birthday out of your calendar, remove mommy's name out of your phone, like everything.
Yeah.
I want no parts of you just like you want no parts of me.
Wow. Yeah. And I think that's a defense mechanism because it's because that person hurt you.
Yeah.
So you want to make them feel sometimes what you felt in those moments. I definitely know I'm that person. Like, and it's not even on purpose. I just think that, like, I felt like when it comes to love, there were cases of where I felt rejected by the person that I loved, and it was definitely like me leaving. I always, like, my friends joke and call me the flighty Pisces, because I'm a lever. I'm a flat lever too. I'm a flat lever. Let's just be honest. I'm a flat lever.
What do you mean, like a flat lever?
Yeah,
so what does that mean?
A flat lever meaning that I don't need your side to understand sometimes why I needed to do what I do.
So the person doesn't even need to give you an explanation. You don't need to talk things through.
But I've grown in that area, if I'm honest. Like now, like before in my past, I'll even be honest, even when it came to my marriage, I refused counseling. I refused everything. Wow. I said that because I had made it up in my mind already. There was nothing that the person could say. There's nothing that the person could do to change how I felt, because I was solid on that. Like, I thought about that.
So, and I knew you are the rejector, but you're not just rejecting people, you're rejecting systems.
Yes, exactly.
And that's an important point, I think. Because if you're even rejecting the systems that would help to heal
it, I've made it like and if I'm honest and reflection of that, obviously, I actually went to counseling solely after that. Wow. Because I didn't want to do it together. I didn't feel safe, to be honest. I didn't feel safe to do it in a joint way. No, I didn't, because there were things that I was battling that I just wasn't even ready to talk to my partner about. And I knew in my mind there was nothing that person could do, because it had nothing to do with them.
Wow.
It had everything to do with me and what was going on with me. I do feel that over the years since that time, I have grown that muscle to kind of be honest more so with people. Like, when I'm feeling rejected, when I'm feeling like not at my best, when I'm not feeling good in a situation, whether it be friendship, whether it be relationship, it's not an easy task for me, because that thing, that adrenaline in your stomach, like you get sick, like, yo, I gotta confront this.
Right.
But I'm learning to exercise that muscle more. And the thing is that one thing I think that used to bother me the most when it comes to talking to people is that I used to feel like it doesn't matter what I say, they're still going to have their whatever about it, their thoughts, however they're going to perceive it however they want to regardless. But I had to change my mindset when it came to stuff like that and said it doesn't matter. My responsibility is my delivery. And what my truth is, I can't control how you're going to receive it unless I'm nasty, cursing at you, being belligerent, being mean. That's the part that's not right. But if I'm coming to you in a tone, once I've kind of like processed, because that's one thing, I don't react anymore. I respond to people. I will take a moment. I don't let people just like push me into an immediate response. I don't do that anymore. I'll take a step back and say, hey, listen, I've heard you, but I need a minute. Because I have to process what's going on in my brain so that I can articulate what it is that I need to get to you. So I've grown in that area. Like I'm not like, so a flat leaver, I used to more so be like that. I will still leave you, don't get it twisted, but you'll have like some type of exit speech or something where, and I'll allow you to talk and say however it is that you feel. And I can consider some of the things that you are saying and with respect to your feelings, but ultimately the decision is going to be mine.
Amber said an exit speech. She's giving people exit interviews.
Wait, that's what I was about to say. So let me ask you this, I guess when it comes to the rejection part of that, right? Because I would feel like that was rejection. So at that point that you have the conversation, you've already decided that it's a wrap.
In most cases, but in most cases, yes. Because it takes a lot for me to reach that point to exit from someone. I'm not like
you have exit speeches. I have to ask.
Like for me, So for me, like it typically takes a lot. I feel like I do my best to communicate to people about if something makes me uncomfortable or if I don't really like that. I've also tried to change like maybe how I've dealt with people so that it's kind of like less pressure on you because maybe I may not see you at this level anymore. I may reduce you to a certain level so that it doesn't impact me as much. But once it just becomes super overwhelming to me, more than likely it's a wrap. I think I'm very wise. I like to credit myself as being wise. I know what it is sometimes what I feel. That's just it. Like I'll listen to someone though. Don't get me wrong. There's been times that I knew I was just out of here and I would give someone that opportunity to fix it or change it. But I kind of almost felt like it led right back, if not worse.
Yeah. Well, when people don't recognize themselves or recognize the behavior, it'll keep on happening. You know what I mean? If you can't, I think we were talking about that on the last episode and we were talking about basically, saying sorry. Right? And Tamara said something to the effect of, but what are you sorry for? Right? So if a person doesn't know why they're saying sorry or why they're even apologizing or they're just saying that to quote unquote keep the relationship, it will be repeat.
I have this thing though when it comes to life and when it comes to my friendships, my relationships. Am I hurting your feelings or am I honoring my feelings?
So I think both of those come into play, especially when we talk about rejection and friendships, right? So I think we, of course, honor you. You come first, right? So it's like, just like the plane always tells us, put our mask on first, right? We have to take care of ourselves. But for people we value and the people that we love, I not only think, I believe, you know what I mean, that yes, you have to honor how they feel to a certain extent because you're having a relationship, right?
Sure.
So you care about them. I care about how you feel, whether I agree or disagree with you, right? So there has to be some account for their feelings of just trying to understand where they are. And maybe you won't ever agree, but there's some medium in there.
Honoring my feelings is honoring your feelings, right? Because the way that I feel about you is important, right?
It is.
And so if I care about the way that I feel, then the way I feel about you is really as important if I care about the relationship.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if Deb and I are having an issue, I care about her. I mean, deeply. Like, it would really physically affect me. It would really bother me.
So, do you think that you don't care about a relationship if you leave it?
So I don't. So if you mean if you reject the whole relationship altogether, that you don't care about it, I don't know that that's always that. And that I think that's the part of rejection.
Because I've left people that
I think you can just make up in your mind that this is not for you.
Exactly.
And it's not a healthy place for you. And it's not the direction in which you want your life to go. Correct. And I think that's an okay decision to make.
Correct. Yeah. And sometimes in that, I find that people are rejected in that, right?
Well, people are rejected in that, especially if they still desire
to have that relationship.
If I still want a relationship with Amber or Tamara, and you're saying, no, that's what rejection is. I want you. You don't want me. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I'm desiring the relationship that I had with or have with Tamara, and she's saying, hey, it's ending or it has ended, that's 100% rejection on my end. I think it's a way to, and that's what I'm learning. You know what I mean? On the other side of not just being the person that was rejected, but rejecting other people, because there are 100% people I'm like, hey, I feel like that season of life for me
is done.
Or passing, you know what I mean? Yeah. Or not even passing, but just done. And and you know when that happens, and it doesn't change the love level, it may change the relationship, right? It may, like you said, almost lessen that maybe the time that you spend or the time that you interact, because you may be at a different season of life. But I think when you value someone and you love them and you want the best for them, and you don't want to,
and that truth is important. That
discard them in that, in that way. I think it's a process to exchange that information with them and not just leave them. Like I've literally had relationships in which like people have just left. And I
like
think
no
that,
trace, just left.
And I think that for me, here's the thing, and I talked about this before, is like, sometimes in our trauma, in what we experience, we become the very thing that we hate. Right? And a lot of times, like the relationship I talked about, I had become that because I had experienced that. I had experienced the, hey, everything's fine, to you're gone. Right. You know what I mean? Or it's like, hey, this not gonna work. Best of luck to you. You know what I mean? And like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? Out of the blue type thing. So not a lead up to that, or something that you could kind of grasp or even understand, or the just straight, hey, can't do this anymore.
But Deb, you know what? I really do think, and I'm a firm believer in the philosophy that rejection is protection. I believe so. And I mean, I probably know everybody that you've been with that you've been rejected by at this point. But
almost, probably most.
And if I'm recalling right, that's for your protection.
Yeah.
And, so I think we need to look at it that way. I mean, even in friendships, friendships that you've rejected, right? To be able to walk in your truth about that friendship, about where you are, that's for that person's protection.
Yes, because
you cannot be a good friend to someone who you don't want
to be. Right.
And I can't force that.
I agree to that.
I can't force a relationship. I can't force a friendship.
Oh,
and you're going to feel it. You're going to feel like I'm stringing you along.
Yeah, you're going to feel like you're
you don't
annoyed
need anyone like that.
You cannot extract anything from someone that they are not willing to give.
And there's this graphic that I love in my first marriage. I remember seeing a graphic of Jesus, like God, he's like, exactly the graphic I'm talking about, and he's looking at this little girl who has the little bear, and he has his hands behind his back, and he's like, just give it to me, and she's like, no, because I love it so much, and he was like, just trust me, and he has this big bear in the back of him, like, if you just trust me and give me this little thing. So I think so many times when we feel rejected, we're like on the floor crawling around for the crumbs, when there's like a big meal. I mean, look at Amber, she looked like a big old whole meal over there, waiting. I'm just saying, waiting for us, right? Waiting for us.
And so I think, sis, the important thing about that is that you have to have the lens to even see that.
Yes.
So I think that is,
I agree,
and I think that for me, that's been my journey to see that. Right.
So that's good. I just. Once I was rejected in my first marriage, I had to make up in my mind that I was going to accept myself.
Yes.
Wow. I like that.
You got to accept you.
Yeah.
Before anybody can accept you.
Right.
And this pattern that you have referenced and that you're talking about, baby, you got to like wake up in the morning every morning and be like, sis in a dress. Sis is in a dress.
There you go.
Sis is in heels.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to
Affirm.
accept you and affirm you.
Yeah.
And since then, I can count on one hand how many times I've been rejected, and not that I haven't been, but how many times it's affected me in that way that I really care about it.
Because
it's perception.
Because like,
But I think, so, and this is what I want the listeners to get. We have people at all different stages.
Yeah.
Right? So for the person or the place I used to be, and I always say that I'm still healing in that place because I feel like it's always a sensitive area for me because it's been so much injury there, right? So if I keep on breaking my right arm for years and years and years, anything that feels like it's about to be a break is a very sensitive place for that, right? So the person that is either where I was, or maybe in the middle, or maybe like I feel like I'm in this place that is so free that it's ridiculous.
I'm so happy.
Like I really love.
I feel free around you.
Yeah,
so I can feel it.
I feel very free.
I can feel it.
Always.
I like love me, and it's not like a just.
And it's not attached to.
It's not attached to a relationship.
Right.
It's not attached to anything but me 100% living
good for you.
What I want to be doing, accepting
you,
who
affirming
I am,
you,
and like
acknowledging all the A's, y'all, acknowledging you,
and like it's the most amazing place. And I just, I think back, I wish I had somebody, not even who told me, because I don't know if it told me or was transparent enough to say, hey, this is something that I struggle with. Because I think outside looking in, that most people wouldn't see that. They wouldn't see it. They wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But to be sitting in what people, again, you never know how people look at you, but how people kind of view you of just like this. People think I'm invincible, this strong. And I'm just like, no, this is like a really hard area. And people are like, oh, well, you're pretty. What does that mean? You know what I mean? That doesn't mean you don't receive rejection. You know what I mean? That what you look like has nothing to do with it. Being a good person has nothing to do with it. Having a good heart has nothing to do with it, right? Of what you experience. And I 100% agree. Yeah. I look back at a lot of relationships that I probably was in tears for
and I was like, why? Amber, look at my face. I was like, why? Don't let me have to go out here and hurt nobody.
You know what's funny? That Deb said that. So Deb has always been a part of my process as far as like growth. Deb has seen Amber from the Blockiana Queen. Let me tell you something, okay?
Y'all have no idea.
I used to block. What you say? Block.
I would come in the store. She's like, let me show you who I'm about to block. And I block. I used to be like, and here I am, Amber.
Amber, it's okay.
I'm like, it's okay, Amber. You really don't have to block them. Yes, let them watch.
I know. You know why? Because I was hurt. I was just so hurt. Like I always kind of felt like I try to put out the best energy as possible. I love on people. I feel that I'm good to people. Of course, I've made mistakes. I'm not a perfect person, but I felt like I've done so much to show people greatness. And the rejection of them saying like, oh, because maybe an incident happened that's not even related to them. They wanted to somehow interject themselves.
It was their out.
Right?
It was their out.
And that was like a season I felt attacked. I felt under attack. I felt like I couldn't see who's who, what's what, blocked. Because then I don't have to deal with it. It was escapism. It was deep escapism for me. It was my way to control my feelings, out of sight, out of mind. And that was my way to heal. To be very honest, I don't regret a lot of those blocks. I don't, if I'm being extremely honest. But what I learned in that was I have to be the master of my own emotions. Deb has always kind of like helped me in that area. I had other friends too who were really wise who have helped me in that area to just be like, Amber, relax. Like, you get what I'm saying? Because I could be a high-strung person. Like, you get what I'm saying?
But you're so here's the thing, right? And I think it comes off very different. What comes off high-strung is a very emotional place. Like you feel deeply.
Yeah, right? I feel deeply. I'm like, if one of my friends is having a bad day and you done called me and told me about that bad day, everybody's like, Amber's a tough friend. No. I'm a Pisces. I'm mortary. I'm going to cry with you. I'm going to be sad with you. And I'm going to internalize that all day. I just said to Deb, this year I turned 34 on February 24th. And I just said to Deb, I had a beautiful birthday dinner. I was not in a relationship. I am on the brink of divorce next month. My business has excelled extremely. I have a better sight for friendship. I have a better sight for family. Like so many great things happen. Awesome. I just feel like I have arrived like to the point that even when I have been under attack, like by people close to me, who have done really horrible or awful things, my response is not even aggressive anymore. It's just straight up, you know what? It's so peaceful. It's not it. Like this is not gonna work. And guess what? I don't hate you. I don't resent you. I don't have any hard feelings for you, but where I am, I've worked so hard to get here. Like I went through a really rough time for 2 years, and because I've worked so hard to get out of my valley and I am at my mountaintop, I'm not gonna scream down at the valley just to keep checking in. No, I've passed that. Right. And I think sometimes too, especially in our evolution, what happens is that people are in valleys, right? But that's where they reside. That's where they live. I have passed through there to visit, right? I may have visited that valley, but you're not there. But I don't live there. You looking at me like, well, why are you going home now? I'm like, oh no, I was just chilling. I was just chilling. It was a bad season. I was just chilling. Your house was cool, but I gotta go back up to the mountaintop. Like, you get what I'm saying? So even at 34 years old, and guess what? I am still learning. Don't get it twisted. I don't have all the answers. Through reading, and Deb helped me with relational intelligence and stuff like that. The book is just like
Dr. Darius Daniels, Relational Intelligence.
It's helped me to learn how to compartmentalize people and back to the rejection area, right? And in the book, he talks about like the different types of relationships on how not to confuse associates from friends, from advisors to associates. You know what I'm saying? Because when you have an idea of what people look like, even if you are rejected, like if somebody had chosen to advise me on how to build the biggest juice bar in the world, and at that point they like, Amber, I've taught you everything that I need. I could feel rejected, right? But if I have an understanding of the relationship with that person, is it really rejection? Or is it understanding that seasons change?
Yeah.
So here's the thing with that. I think when you don't have the lens to identify, and that book is amazing, right? When you don't have the lens to identify those categories of almost placing people, you mix those up, right? And you don't, you know what I mean? You don't when you don't place people, you're in the right category. You're looking for, you know, your advisor to be a friend. And it's like, you're not my friend, right? Or your associate is not your friend. It's somebody that you may have things in common with. Maybe your son plays basketball. My son plays basketball. We interact in that way. But when you don't have that lens, you really don't have that to,
or when you don't have those boundaries.
Yes,
too, right? I think boundaries are important. I think, Amber, that's what you were kind of hitting at. It's like, you know, I need those kinds of boundaries so I don't end up in that valley again. Right?
Oh, I don't want to go back.
And while it may feel like rejection for some people, it's protection again from me.
Again, go ahead.
It is. And I matter. Right? I matter. As much as we love other people and we want to see other people do well and we support other people, we matter.
Yes.
Right?
And you can't give from an empty tank. And I'm big on that. Like, I just can't extract what I can't give anymore. Like, you know, like I always talk about this too. I have learned that I've spoiled people with attention.
And they need it and feed off of it.
And it's a toxic thing sometimes.
But when you say you spoil them with
I'm like Amber
attention,
too with that.
Do you think you spoil people with attention?
Yeah, so much to the point that when I can't do it, you're upset with me.
Upset, and not only upset, but you're feeling like so rejected.
Yeah,
I
can't answer my phone now. Right. I'm like the worst person in the world. Like, how does that happen when I always answer my phone?
I don't know if it's spoiling with attention, but there's a certain type of energy that people crave, and I know that I have this. It's there's like this charisma or whatever it is that I have. I don't know.
We just don't.
Is it? I don't know if that's what it is. I don't know if that's what it is, but I know that whatever it is I have to offer people in love,
healing,
whatever it is, they desire it and crave that.
Yes.
And when I'm not able to be available to give it, it's almost like a smack in the face for them. And I'm like, no, I'm busy, or I'm with my family, or, you know, and
is this close? Like, is it close friends?
It can be. So I'm a very, so here's the thing. I'm a very touch and go type person, and I have everybody. That's my ministry. My ministry is love. So I loves people to a better place, and I love the hell out of people. That's my ministry. But I have to be careful, and I have to set those boundaries, because otherwise people will look to me as like kind of being the person who is there to heal them or save them, or and the moment I say no about something, it feels like rejection to them.
Right. Because they're so used to hearing yes.
Because I'm always saying yes. But I learned a long time ago that no is a very anointed word.
I was about to say, I love no.
And I'm learning that even more now.
I love no.
I'm learning it even more now.
So it's funny that you say that, because I recently I had someone offer for me to like interact to heal, like help with somebody's healing process. And I was just like, you know, and I get that often, right? Part of my calling. I know that there's a portion of me that is called to that. Like, that even why I want to go into therapy and why I want to be a therapist. I know that that's part of who I am, just naturally, you know, what I give. But for me, again, not going back to the valley, I'm very, very particular in who I interact with, because it's like I've worked so hard to get
here. Yeah,
I mean, like I've cried way too many tears to just go back.
Yeah,
and not that I'm not. I want to help people, but I want to help them within.
It's okay to choose people. Like I always feel like one thing I learned in therapy is that broken people can choose us. We don't have to choose them back. And I think while our ministry is like, my ministry is people. Like, I'm a lover of people, right? I am, but I can't take on every soul. It's number one, it's impossible.
Right.
And that's
you're not called to every soul.
And I'm not called to everybody. And like, honestly, it's like me, for instance, like I'm the fun person. I'm the I always make people feel good. I'm the Deb knows I'm the friend that's going to tell you to jump, quit your job, do what you want to do, travel the world. That's my spirit. So even if it's a quick escape for those people, right? I can do that for you and go home and never talk to you. And it's not because I didn't feel that in that moment.
Yeah. But I call that the touch and go.
Yes,
Amber.
I'm the touch and go. Like I don't
go.
have a deep connection tied to that.
But that is rejection for some people.
It is. It's huge.
And the way you say no is important, right? Yes. I was thinking about this on the way here.
Okay.
And even to strangers, right? So women have to be careful about how we say no to men on the street.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You heard about in Harlem, the woman in the liquor store. She's like, no, thank you.
And they
followed her and they beat her up. And I'm just saying, those are strangers.
Yes.
And if strangers are reacting that way, so people that we have to just be very careful with ourselves. And I'm just, I'm sorry that happened to that young lady, but I'm using that as an example of how we really need to take good care in the way that we are saying no. Yeah. Because it does feel like rejection, and we don't like the way rejection feels. We just said that 30 minutes ago.
So Tamara, we need to steward our no.
Okay.
We need to use wisdom.
In the know.
In the know.
Like Amber said it. We need to use wisdom in the know.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to set boundaries so that when we are using wisdom to say no, people are already respecting the boundaries that we've set.
Right.
If we are not setting those boundaries and we're just kind of willy-nilly with our no, we're going to hurt people's feelings.
I can tell you, Deb knows this about me.
Our feelings have been hurt in that regard.
Right.
Oh, my feelings have
Deb knows this about me. I don't like phone calls on Sunday. All of my close friends know that. Everybody who is very close to me knows that. Do not call me on Sundays. Sundays are a very intense day for me. I am doing...
That's your work.
That's my work. That's my business day.
Right.
That's my get money day. I have to facilitate a bunch of souls who need juices today. Please, not today. Seriously, because on top of talking to you, I have customers like who they may just need a little reminder about the process. Oh, what time am I supposed to get up? And my hands are wet. It's just too much. It's very intense for me. All of my friends know that, right? When my friends don't respect that, that makes me very upset. Like if I've told you multiple times and you still do it, that's what I'm talking about as far as boundaries. And I made sure to communicate that with every one of my friends. Like, listen, on Sundays, Deb is great. She know, like, I'll tune in to church with her. We might text a little bit, but she knows she probably not going to hear from me until like 9, 10 o'clock.
But that makes me think then.
Yeah, like I tell people in a good way, but then now you're mad when you're not getting what you want. So let's flip
it, right? So let's think about those who are listening, and for us too, when we were rejected, when people tried to set boundaries.
Yeah, you ignored them.
Did we ignore those boundaries?
And I've had friends
I can remember my ex-husband trying to hint, set boundaries, say stuff. And this is even before we were married. And I went past every red light.
Whatever.
Every red light because I wanted it so badly.
Yeah.
I wanted it so badly.
So do you think that we create our own, not in every case, I'm not talking, but do you think we create our own rejection in that case? So if you passed all these red lights... Yes, you can
manufacture your own rejection.
Yeah. Because you're
you
not...
just sat here and testified to manufacturing your own rejection of a man who didn't even reject you. Yeah. And you walked away.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Packed up and left.
Packed up and left because we manufacture that stuff in our heads.
Yeah.
We make it up.
And then too, sometimes it comes with not standing on your own boundaries. Like for instance, like all those times that I might have taken a phone call on a Sunday and gave you an extra 10 minutes, gave you that extra 15, kind of stepping outside of what I knew would bother me later on later down the line. People have done that to me. I have literally made it clear, please don't call me on Sunday.
I remember a friend of mine. I texted her about something. She's like, today is not a good day. And it must have been on a Sunday or Monday. She's like, I'll talk to you on Thursday.
Yeah.
You don't even know what I want. But at that time,
matter. She can't give you something.
Sanity, her well-being, right? She made that a priority over anything and everybody else.
Yeah. Wow.
And I had to reflect and say, I'm not mad at that. As a matter of fact, thank you for modeling for me what that should look like. And setting expectations and helping people to manage their expectations. So I knew I wasn't going to hear from her until Thursday, and that was cool.
So for me, I never go on vacation. Not say never. I don't want to say I never go on vacation. Taking time off for me now it's becoming a little easier because I'm going into my 4th year of business. I kind of have a handle on things. I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I don't get paid days off. I have to finagle certain things. So even recently I went on vacation and I gave myself some ground rules upon going to vacation. There were certain things that I was not going to attack while on vacation. I was not in the place. The point of it was for me to release. It was for me to get away. It was for me to just be me. Obviously, I had to still incorporate business to let people know I'm present. I did enough so people knew I was present, but I was not available.
Got you.
I was really dedicating and focusing my time and attention to the person that I committed my time and attention to. That was something I said I was definitely going to do because that was the purpose of the trip.
Now, I just read something that said, just because I'm free does not mean I'm available.
And those are, and guess what? People feel messed up when you do that. They feel like you're hurting my feelings. It's like, no, I can't give you what I don't have right now. And you have to teach people how to treat you.
Right. But I think we do. I think, so that's when you guys talk about kind of giving people that level of attention. And I don't know if that's now, but just in general, but that level of attention where that's the expectation of that relationship almost. And I'm guilty of it too. I don't think I do it as much, but I do think I do it for specific people.
Yeah, to send a message.
You know what I mean? Like
send a message.
Yeah. So I'm like, you have to, we teach people how to treat us. Mm-hmm. And if you're treating them that way all the time, of course, when that treatment changes in the spur of the moment, they're like, wait, what?
Right.
Because I always have access to you.
Right.
I'm always pulling over. I'm always taking the time out. And we do have to be careful about that.
And I have definitely grown in that area, especially because my availability has changed. I am a very busy person these days. Like
Amber, you're a mover and a shaker.
Listen,
all the time.
Mover, shaker. Like I literally don't have it, and I always tell myself, "Look, grind now, apologize later." And do I really apologize? Probably not. You get what I'm saying? I just can't. Like I'm a really busy person, and like I had to teach my children, my father, my brother, my close friends that I'm not the same Amber, and that's okay. I'm not leaving you behind, but it's a new era right now. Yeah. It is.
I mean, I think as we evolve, people have to, they have to adapt. They're gonna have to pivot with who we're becoming, and that's a good, what I mean. It's a good thing. It's not like you're growing in the wrong way.
Right.
We have to pivot in that way.
Yeah.
I guess I want to talk about what we would leave like the listeners with, like for rejection, for somebody who's dealing with
about that.
like who's dealing with any stage of rejection. It's one thing right now where I am, which I love, but I haven't always been here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even to be able to identify, it took me a long time to even pinpoint where all these other things stem from. Why was I leaving? You know what I mean? Why was it so easy for me to leave? Like, what was that? You know what I mean? Like the self-sabotage thing. Why was I in a healthy relationship? And one of probably, I don't want to say the only, but one of the probably the best relationships that I was in. What made me leave? And it was like the fear of rejection.
Wow.
The fear of, because I had experienced that so much by that time that I was just so afraid that it's no way that this is going to work at that period of time that I left. You know what I mean? Something that plays again. Yeah. Rejection is one of those things that keeps playing in your mind.
Yeah.
So it's not like you ever forget it. It's like, you kind of think.
So what would your words of wisdom be to reflect after rejection?
So I think for me, I think when you feel that feeling of rejection, because I think rejection is not a lot of times acknowledged. I think it's something that people just move on, especially, and it's women's, right? It's women that are in the room, so it's the ladies that we're talking to. But I think as a woman, do we really like take rejection and like examine it? I think men, and we'll talk about men another time because we might have to bring the fellas in here. But I think men, they're always approaching women, right?
So they're conditioned.
They're conditioned, and I'm not saying that it affects them differently, and I would love to know their side of it, but like I think all the time they're getting it. Like, okay, you don't want me? Okay, try the next girl.
Yeah, rebounding.
It's always, kind of over and over and over. But I don't think that I identified it as rejection. So every time that it happened, it wasn't something necessarily that I talked about.
Right.
It wasn't something that I really even acknowledged. I just kept going. And then when it happened again, I would kind of have my self-talks with myself.
Yeah, I think that this goes back to the last podcast. That self-reflection piece is important. But I am a firm believer that we have to affirm ourselves.
Yes.
We have to affirm ourselves, even in that rejection.
But in not the affirmation, don't be delusional.
Right. Well, that's why I said, so reflection,
be telling yourself stuff
and affirmation. So in that reflection, you want to look at why you might have been rejected. Yeah.
And your pattern, like, did somebody else say this to you, right?
But if Deb is talking and saying, and and I know we're trying to close up here, but if you're saying that there is a pattern of rejection, right? And I'm not a therapist, so let me just say that. But if there is a pattern of something, then that the constant in that is you.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing.
The constant in that.
How we talk
I just
to
want
ourselves.
the listeners to hear, because the constant in that is the person who has that pattern.
Correct. Who has that pattern. So here's what I learned in that, though. So just like an unexamined wound, right? That kind of festers. You get infection from it. So it affects other areas. You know what I mean? So for me, I think that, and this was my experience, I don't know what the listeners' experiences is, but something for you guys to think about is like, from the rejection pattern, right? I'm talking about young, super young. You know what I mean? It got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm being rejected all these times. So now it started to be other things that were becoming just like a cut.
The wound. If we loop back to that,
if you go back to the wound, if it's unattended to, it's going to affect other areas of your body. Do you know what I mean? So it started showing in different areas. So I didn't even know it was the cut on my arm, and it was branching off. It also affected my eyesight. Of like then what I started to choose. Right? So again, something to think about when you don't address that initial
That's
wound.
Good, Deb. That's
it
good.
literally flows through the body and starts looking like all different things. And then that lens that you have of what you're even choosing. Like I think back to now as an adult, you know what I mean? Who was I choosing? And why was I choosing? It also made me a people pleaser. Because I wanted acceptance. Right? So I wanted to be
above
accepted.
And beyond
so
to get that acceptance.
It was above and beyond of not just me being my normal loving self. It was like extreme of that because I only wanted to be accepted and not rejected. You know what I mean?
I think like if I had any words of wisdom, it goes almost even back to the reciprocity segment that we had initially. I look at things like, just ask yourself, is what you're giving reciprocal to the person you're trying to give it to? Because sometimes, like, let's just say, for instance, like if you're constantly just buying me stuff or doing all of these things, that's not what I need. So if I'm telling you, hey, I understand you're doing this, but that's not serving me. That doesn't serve me. You have to stop and ask yourself, like, okay, and be okay. Like Tamara said, when it comes to protection, that what you may be giving, somebody ain't buying.
They might not want it.
Like, if I get rejected, okay? People don't be buying juices sometimes, okay? And guess what? It's all good because all it takes. Shout out to Beef and
I know, Beef and Focus.
But like,
the anniversary sale going on right now.
Yes, happy 4 years to Beef and Focus. But if I had to definitely, I had to definitely learn rejection. Especially, you got to build that muscle when it comes to business. But sometimes what you selling, people are not buying.
I hear that.
And you have to understand that that's okay.
And it's not for them.
Shout out to Brenda. Shout out to Brenda though, from Be Inspired Collection. Brenda said something that was so pivotal for me. I was like, wow, okay. Right? So she said there are 7.8 billion people in the world. Focus on your 1%.
I know that's right. And so for me,
you're 1%. You know how many people that is?
That's your sphere.
Why do you care about the other 99%?
Because we're a prideful people.
Yes, but
this goes back to pride.
and even when it comes to business and stuff, but people, I don't. Me personally, I have superseded that point of people don't support me. I don't care about those people.
Focus on that. 1%.
I love the people who love me.
And listen,
your 1%.
That 1%, that's where I was
going.
Focus
on your 1%.
My mother said this to me, and it changed my life.
Yes.
Love the one that loves you.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. It's really that simple.
One that loves.
Are you trying to take?
Listen, I'm not the one. I got the one that loves me.
You don't like it?
I have friends that love me. I have a husband that loves me. I got kids and a church and a job. All of that loves
and your sisters
me.
that love you.
And my sisters that love, like,
love you.
Your 1%.
I'm focusing on my 1%. I'm affirming, acknowledging, I'm reflecting on me. Yeah, and I'm loving the one that loves me.
I love that.
And shout out to my mom. Like, me and my mother used to watch, was it Friday After Next? And remember Miss Pearly? She used to be like, I know somebody like you. And my mother always used to say that. We used to joke so much. I'd be like, Mom, I don't like that blouse. She's like, I know somebody like
somebody
you.
like you.
That's it. So
does.
if that's
Somebody
really your
like
approach with life, and you
That's
love on
good.
the people who love you,
And
that's it.
remember that there's always something bigger.
Yeah.
Right? That big
I
teddy
love
bear in the
that.
back.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And you're holding on to these crumbs. You're holding on to this little thing.
But
and there's so
much more.
But do
There's
take
more.
time
So
though.
much
But like
more.
you
There's
said,
so
if there's a
much
pattern though,
more.
please take
Yeah.
the time and just acknowledge the pattern, because sometimes people
had to.
even like I have had to in friendships, relationships with people that they may not like what I did in the moment, but I pray that they got what it is, what I was trying to tell them. And even if it did not include me, I'm okay. I loved you enough to give you back to God so you can learn what you needed to learn.
I love
That's
that.
it.
I love that. Thank you guys.
Thank
you
you.
guys.
It was
So
so
listener,
cool being here.
listen.
Yes.
The 1%.
the 1%.
That's it.
The 1%.
Just that 1%.
The 1%.
Worry about the
Yes.
1%.
So thank you guys for joining us. We will see you next week. We out of here.
Yes.
Shout out to Bravery Studios.
Yes, shout out Bravery Studios.
They're my favorite. That's